Gran Turismo 7 is the most welcoming GT ever. Gran Turismo's goal to be the best-looking driving sim out there hasn't been dropped. The Gran Turismo franchise officially dates back 25 years, and the launch of Gran Turismo 7 coincides with this. Gran Turismo 7 manages to encompass everything that was created with Gran Turismo Sport, and ties it in with a modern take on the original Gran Turismo games. With the power and tech of the PlayStation 5, Gran Turismo 7 is now the pinnacle of the series with the deepest physics realism to date. Everything looks smooth enough that you'll want to run your fingers across the glistening paint jobs. However, when you're racing, you'll want to have frame rate mode switched on. This keeps the game at a steady 60 frames per second, but does lose some visual flair. GT7 is the most polished, addictive, and accessible Gran Turismo game yet, wholly justifying its place as a marquee PS5 title for years to come. Believe the hype, and then some. Gran Turismo 7 is one of the most complete racing experiences you'll ever lay your hands on. Starting out in GT7 on PS5, you'll be offered the choice between two graphics modes, a performance mode that prioritizes the frame rate at all times, and a ray tracing mode that applies ray tracing to certain non-gameplay scenarios. With ray tracing on, the camera tends to jitter a bit when panning across interiors, and I actually think the cars tend to look sharper and better without it. Gran Turismo 7's 420 plus car models are staggering. While each model is impressive, many are a little on the old side. The cars that are there look incredible, but the vast majority are out of date. Some of the older cars are there for good reason. All the events in GT7 are housed under each track, whether it be arcade racing, time trials, drift trials, the return of circuit experience, and the new meeting place. Circuit experience allows player to learn the tracks through individual sections. The meeting place is an online racing spot for players to join in, do free runs, and talk about their cars and setups. Custom races can also be set up here. GT7 has a charming story mode of sorts, the cafe. It's here players will be steadily introduced to all the joys the game has to offer via Luca, the cafe's friendly owner. He provides you with menu books that set specific challenges, which unlock tracks, features, or cars to bolster your collection and collector level. License tests return, and these will have you take more and more powerful cars on weak tires to pass the tests and race in better races. Some of these tests are also rally events, and while they're not ridiculous to pass, getting gold is another story. Thankfully, they're addictive, albeit occasionally frustrating little tasks that teach you the game's physics model. The way Gran Turismo handles is, as you'd hope after a quarter of a century of refinement, bang on. Barrel into corners with the throttle wide open and you'll understeer, lift off mid-corner, and the rear will swing round. Like GT Sport before it, GT7 seriously sings on a steering wheel, but know that it still feels absolutely at home on a DualSense controller. The PS5 DualSense's haptic feedback also rates a positive mention. The response to curbs is particularly nuanced, and there are some other bits of feedback that are unique to particular tracks that feels very cool. The adaptive triggers on the DualSense, much like other racing games, allows for resistance in certain braking and accelerating situations. Braking is difficult to judge, and it takes time on the DualSense to adjust, and this also pertains to individual cars and setups. To make the experience deeper, every time the car transmission shifts, the controller offers an intuitive hard vibration. It's a deep experience that brings racing to the modern age. The driving is better than it's ever been, and that's in no small part thanks to the PS5 hardware, and especially the DualSense controller. More on that later, but it's the most responsive and skill-based gameplay in the series yet. You truly feel every gear change, every rumble of the brake pedals, every divot in the road. GT7's dynamic time of day and weather effects aren't a genre first, but they have finally pushed its tracks to the next level. Races go the usual Gran Turismo way. You start at the back and fight your way to the front. Races have a recommended performance point rating to let you know how competitive your car needs to be. AI competitors drive defensively and occasionally make mistakes, requiring you to think about your angle of attack. The AI, while improved with workarounds, still remains a Gran Turismo legacy issue. Much like the single player did in GT Sport, the leader tends to get far ahead as you're more or less racing against time and trying to avoid the slower cars in front. Being able to run into cars with no repercussions to save a corner, however, is still a thing. The AI will also not recognize you're there to the point that they'll run straight into you from behind. There's an option to choose the AI difficulty level, and even on the hardest, it wasn't much of a battle. The music replay feature works as advertised, and I understand that the race replay cameras are being generated around the track dynamically depending on how fast my car is traveling, and switching in time with the music, but the effect isn't particularly seismic or stirring. Music Rally, an arcade-style mode where we start with a certain number of beats which tick down as a song plays, and need to be topped up by passing through extension gates, has turned out to be a particularly odd focus. While a racing wheel will be the most accurate way to play, Polyphony's work with the DualSense controller's haptics is a respectable alternative. If your front wheels are struggling, you'll feel it through the triggers. The ability to feel something, anything, that's going on above a gentle rumble via controller is a huge boon as it helps you gauge inputs. While the PvP online component was really the crux of GT Sport, GT7 doesn't emphasize it in quite the same way, letting the single-player campaign flex its muscles. With rotating, scheduled racing and championships, Sport Mode in GT7 still functions the same as it does in GT Sport, though, so I fully expect it'll be a similarly strong online racing venue. While racing and collecting are the main focus, you'd be a fool to miss out on missions. These include a variety of different driving challenges, such as slipstreaming for speed, drag racing, or overtaking challenging opponents in a short slot of track. Like license tests, they can be frustrating, but you'll keep coming back for more. Similarly, the Music Rally function is a neat distraction from the main game. Drive quick enough to music so you don't run out of beats. Specific race settings, and just chat, compare cars, and cruise. These may descend into bedlam following GT7's launch, but I think the idea is sound. There are plenty of places to race in GT7, some based on real locations, some exclusive to the game. With 90 layouts and over 34 tracks to earn and explore, you shouldn't find yourself bored. You can explore the tracks at your leisure, or jump into races on them. Each track comes with its own challenges, not only in layout but in environmental changes as well. The game is beautiful, detailed and fresh, powered by a detailed handling model that's yet to be seen in racing games. It's also worth adding that this is the fastest loading Gran Turismo when played on the PS5. Gran Turismo 7 builds on 22 years of experience to bring you the best features from the history of the franchise. From classic vehicles and tracks to the reintroduction of the legendary GT simulation mode, GT7 brings together the best features from past installments of the series alongside the future. An even more realistic driving experience awaits thanks to haptic feedback, which brings to life what it's like when the tires hit the road. Gran Turismo 7 is the richest and most polished iteration in the series ever, and it's one of the very best racing games money can buy. It's sprawling, addictive, and utterly dependent on your willingness to dedicate the hours into learning each car's niche performers, and acclimating yourself with the tracks, but Gran Turismo 7 is one of the most rewarding racing games out there. That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, share, and hit the notification bell for more videos and updates.